Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is David. If you're new here, hi, welcome. For this video, I am going to be talking about my favourite Stephen King novels that I've ever read. I haven't read all of his work. I am currently reading my 40th book by him, which is the Dark Half. I am having mixed feelings about this, but overall I am enjoying it. You do have to kind of suspend your disbelief in this novel, a little bit, but it's enjoyable. So this was suggested to me by one of my subscribers called read.with.bintou. Hopefully I've said her name right. I probably haven't, but I will put a link down to her channel in the description box down below. She is a booktuber like me, and she knows I talk a lot about Stephen King, and she thought it would be cool if I did this video. So yeah, I did kind of a video like this on my channel already called Where to Start with Stephen King, but I see that as my own recommendations from me to you guys about where you can start with reading Stephen King. But in this video, it's going to be focusing on what books I like from King. And yeah, so I do have a notebook that I keep all my notes with all the books that I need to read in order from King, as well as so I can just know about what ones I'm going to read next, as well as star ratings for separate stories and the short stories and novella collections. I give all the separate stories separate ratings or star ratings, as well as full-blown my thoughts about all the stories, whether they're short stories or novellas or novels. It's kind of like a cross between my review on them and a diary, and a diary entry, which I consider this as my Stephen King diary. So yeah, it's where I keep all my thoughts and opinions about the guy. So so as I said, I haven't read all of his work. I'm about halfway through his work, and I don't like it when people refer to Stephen King as only a horror writer. If you go into a bookstore, the only reason why they keep all of Stephen King's work in the horror section is because the guy has written so many things. He's written horror, sci-fi, fantasy, mystery, detective stories, to name a few. Even some autobiographies chucked in there for good measure. The guy does more than horror, but the reason why they put Stephen King all of his work in the horror section in a bookstore is because it's going to be more easier for people to locate a specific book by King. So yeah, it's kind of irritating when people only classify King as only being a horror writer. It's kind of probably like about when you go up to an anime fan and say that anime is a cartoon. So it's probably going to be that kind of feeling. Anyway, I'm rambling. So I started reading Stephen King in 2017 after watching the Dark Tower movie starring Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. After I watched this movie, I thought it's good. I liked it. It was it was a lot of stuff that was in this movie, and it seemed to be very short. But I was intrigued by this world and these characters. So after I watched the movie, I went straight afterwards. I went out to the bookstore and got a book. The first book. This has nothing to do with the movie. So don't go in. So if you've seen the movie and you go into this thinking that's going to be like the movie, it's nothing in this book happens in the movie. And actually vice versa. Can't believe I said that. Vice versa in my video. But this is the only book in the series that's hard to get into. But after you've read it, you'll like it. I've read all of his work. I've read all these books in one after the other, with only a break halfway in between because the Ready Player One movie was coming out, and I wanted to read the book. There are books in this series that I like better than others, but overall, I love the Dark Tower books. So, let's get started with so these aren't going to be in any particular order, but I'll start off with the book that I consider not only my #1 book that I've ever read since 2017, but my favourite book from King overall. And that's probably not going to change anytime soon. And that obviously being The Stand. This is incredible. About a virus that wipes out most of the life on planet Earth, the humans in planet Earth, and it forms all these survivors that are either go to the good side, which is led by Mother Abigail, or the evil side led by Randall Flagg. This is fantastic characters in this. To actually name a few, Tom Cullen and Trash Can Man are probably my favourite characters. This is the only book by King that I'm aware of that he had to cut because his publisher thought it was going to be too long. No one was going to read this, especially because he was a new author at the time. I think this was his fourth or fifth novel that he read. That she wrote. No, fourth. Yeah, so he had to cut it. And I'm not just saying about like a few pages. He cut about 500 pages from this book. So I do have a cut version, which I did find, and you can tell that it's the cut version because the ending's different. I will be planning to read the cut version of The Stand at some point this year. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. So next one is Pet Sematary. This one is about a family who moved to a small town. That's the house that they moved to is right next to a road that has all these lorries like racing down this road at all hours of the day and night. And one day their little boy gets hit and killed on this road. And it focuses a lot on death and loss. And when Stephen King wrote this, he put it immediately into a drawer because he thought that this was his scariest book and this was going too far. So I love this book. It is so good. It's considered to be his scariest book, but I don't really scare easy, but I loved it. It was really good. Next one. Salem's Lot, his second novel based on vampires. This was heavily inspired by Dracula by Bram Stoker. Also, I went to a bookstore today and saw Bram Stoker's Dracula in a YA section, and I had a kind of a debate whether, because the bookseller and me were having a debate about whether Dracula by Bram Stoker should be a YA book, and he was convinced that Dracula was a YA book because young adults like to read like stuff like Twilight and all that stuff. But yeah, let me know down below if you consider Dracula to be a YA book or a full-blown adult horror book like me. So yeah. Anyway, Salem's Lot is about a vampire who moves into a small, quiet American town and slowly turns the whole town against each other and turns everyone slowly but surely into vampires. I absolutely love this novel so much. People say that it's a very slow burn. I don't care. I love the town in this. He describes it so well. You think that you're really there and that you're a part of the town in this community. Really good book. Next one is considered to be one of Stephen King's better novels. If you are looking on top 10s for Stephen King's work, you'll either find that number one, you'll either find The Stand or It. Do I really have to say what It's about? About a clown who resides in a fictional town called Derry, who hunts and kills little children, and he does hunt and kill adults in this as well, by feeding on people's fears. In this book, he doesn't appear much as a clown. He appears more as people's fears. So he studies people. And if you're, for example, if you're afraid of a like a monster, if you're afraid of a specific monster from a specific horror movie or old movie, he will appear as that monster because he knows in your soul that you are afraid of this thing and this monster. and he will use that to his advantage, or actually its advantage rather, I should say. It's really good. It's very long, but I loved it so much. This is the only Stephen King book that I've ever read twice, and I can't wait to make it number 3, or actually make it my 3rd read for this. So I can't wait to actually read it. Next one is from the Bachman book collection. This story, because this is so in this story, this collection, I am focusing more on the Long Walk, which was published under Richard Bachman, which is Stephen King's pseudonym name, which he created a fake name because he had all these stories in his head that he wanted to publish and publish and have people reading them. But his publisher at the time probably thought that people would get sick and tired of seeing Stephen King's name and always in the store and think, oh, Stephen King's published another book, this guy over publishes, and so he invented this fake name called Richard Bachman, and he released all these several of his works under this his name, but it is actually Stephen King that actually wrote these books. Anyway, I'm rambling. So the book I'm focusing in this collection is The Long Walk, as I said, about a group of 100 teenage boys who have to walk to stay alive. This was written by King when he was a teenager in, I think, high school. When I did a review on this, a content, booktuber, fellow booktuber, or a fellow YouTuber told me that there are loads of different rules in this novel that I didn't get. But I know. I've only read this once this year, but it's fantastic. It's really good, and I can't wait to read it again and to absorb it as well, because it is a really dark and gritty story. So highly recommend The Long Walk. Next one's more of a new story by King, and I was excited to get this. I went to my bookstore in the mall where I work, the same mall which I got the Gunslinger from, and I ordered this new one. I knew it was going to be in a hardback, and I didn't care because I needed to read this book, and that being The Institute. This was talked about a lot on the internet, and this is considered, and this was thought to be a kind of a novel that was going to be very similar to Firestarter, because it focuses on a small group of young children that have been put in this building or this institute, and they are studied. They've all got their own separate rooms that have got all their possessions in it and everything that's important to them, and they have a outdoor area which is obviously fenced around because they can't leave and escape. They actually can't have visitors, and they are more or less prisons. Prisoners, and they all have a different form of ability or supernatural ability, and they are studied and probed. And some people that actually work in this place are nice. Some people aren't. When I got my copy, I don't know if this is like in the US, but in the copy, and when you open it up, rather, you can see a picture of it. This is the motel in the story, and there are about 4 different designs, four or 5 different designs. But I wasn't really fussed. I just ordered mine, and I just opened it up, and I just thought, okay, I've got this design, it's cool. And after I immediately got it, I went down to the Olympic Park, which is a kind of a park area near the Olympic Stadium, and I read this there. Straight after I picked it up, and it is so good. I really loved it. I really did. It is really enjoyable. Highly recommend The Institute. If you want to read more of new Stephen King novels, I would read The Institute. You can't go wrong with. You actually can't go wrong with this book. Oh, so yeah, last 3. On Writing, a memoir of the craft. This is a non-fiction book. This isn't a story. This is more or less more or less an autobiography of King. He actually talks a lot about his writing styles and where he gets his ideas from for different stories. He does talk a lot about his life and his childhood in this book and his life in general. You don't have to be interested in writing or to actually be a writer in order to enjoy this book. I have no interest whatsoever in becoming a writer, but I enjoyed this so much. Obviously because it's King, it is so easy to read. Picture of them there. I don't know if you can quite see it, but yeah, it was absolutely pleasure and joy to read this. It really was. He has another non-fiction book called Danse Macabre where he talks about horror books and horror films in general. But I liked it, but I liked On Writing more. So yeah, it's very short. Yeah, what can I say? It's fantastic. You should read it, especially if you're interested in King, or if you've read a couple of his books or a bunch of his books, and you want to read something a bit more different. I would actually definitely pick up On Writing. It is so good, you won't regret it. You actually won't regret it, if I can say it. So yeah, really good. Next one. It's a book that I can't remember much about, but I do remember that it was a massive surprise when I finished it, about how much I actually enjoyed it, and that being Dolores Claiborne. This is a very short novel. Very short. This focuses on a woman named Dolores Claiborne, who I think her husband is kind of was horrible to her, and she forms a scheme about how she can murder him. I'm pretty sure that's what the story is all about. But despite how much I can't remember much about this book, I did remember how much of a surprise it was. I didn't think I was going to like this book. I thought that it was going to be okay. It's going to be like, because I thought, okay, it's only a small book. It's not going to take me that long to read. It's going to be one that I can actually quickly tick off my list and move on to the next one. I give this 5 stars out of 5. I give it full marks. It is fantastic. It doesn't have any chapter breaks in it. So it's actually kind of like Cujo in a way. It doesn't have any chapters in it. But in this copy that I have, it's probably the same in the copies over in the US and different parts of the world. In my copy, it does have little pictures in it. So I kind of use the pictures as a kind of like virtual bookmark or a visual bookmark. But yeah, I can't wait to read this book so much. I did incredibly enjoy this, and yeah, what a surprise! What a surprise! I actually like this. It was really good, really good. So if you're and this isn't horror. This is kind of a drama. So if you're wanting to read something a bit more different outside of King's normal stuff that he writes, I would read this one. And the final book in this video, or this collection thing that I'm doing, is Christine. Everyone knows what Christine is about, but if you don't, it's about a boy, a teenage boy called Arnie Cunningham, who finds this mysterious old-fashioned Plymouth Fury car that's all beaten up, and he becomes extremely obsessed with this car, and he loves this car so much, and he buys it from this old guy who and Arnie spends all of his time restoring Christine back to her former glory. And Arnie starts off being a kind of a nerd. He's picked on a lot, at school, And his best friend in this, who I cannot remember what his name is more or less like a jock. A jock. He is a sports. Sorry, he is a sports guy. You know, he plays football in school, and he takes Arnie underneath his his wing. Sorry, guys, and he becomes friends with him. And in this book, it's actually told from two perspectives: Arnie's and his friends. Who I'm so sorry I can't remember what his Arnie's friends called in this novel. So it's actually written by different two perspectives, and people kind of thought that was a bit jarring, and it took it out of the book. I didn't, because there are aspects in in this book that are best from different points of view. It's a magnificent story that focuses a lot on obsession, kind of like reading Stephen King books too much. But yeah, it is really good. It is a old classic by King, so definitely read it. And yes, it is horror. So that is my Stephen King books. I actually love reading my favourite Stephen King books. Let me know if you want me to do a video on my least favourite Stephen King books, or maybe my Stephen King adaptations that I have. Sort of like a little collection video, or let me know if you are, or if there's books on this, in this video that you thought that you thought should have been on this video. If there was a book by King that you thought that should have been on this video, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you have read any of these books, what's your feelings about them? And if you're planning to read any of these books, let me know. So yeah, I just wanted to show you some books that I got today when I went out today at my local bookstore. First one being Flights or Frights, edited by Stephen King and Bev Vincent. This is a book with a which has short stories based on aeroplanes, or and it does have an introduction by King, as well as a short story by Stephen King himself, as well as his son Joe Hill. So I really wanted to get this book, despite the fact that it wasn't a straightforward Stephen King book. I still wanted to read it. I can't wait to read it. Next one, I wasn't planning to get these, but they were really cheap, so thought I'd get them. It was like a 2 for £6 or 1 for £4, so I thought, okay, I'll get them, yeah. And this one obviously being Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. A lot of people have talked about this one on here, and I thought, okay, I'll pick it up and I'll give it a try. It's about 200 pages long. You can't go far wrong, and it's cheaper than Kindle. I thought, okay, I'll get these books. If I like them, I'll put them on Kindle. Or if I don't like them, at least they're cheap, so I can give them away. And the next one I got, and the last one I got, was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? This being the book that was to become Blade Runner, the movie. Again, about 200 pages long. Can't wait to read it. And yeah, that's it really, guys. Sorry that I've made this a bit too long. I wanted to be more detailed for you guys. If you like this video, please give me a like, comment and subscribe, and please click the little bell on my channel so you guys know when I am uploading videos. And yeah, that's really it, guys. So be safe, stay healthy, and keep reading, and check out Bintou's channel. See ya, bye.